So you presented today on post-op rehabilitation following shoulder stabilization. What are some of the keys to getting those patients healthy again that you've found?
Well, one of the most important things, and we spent a lot of time in the talk, is just differentiating between stretching and doing range of motion, because so often people who've suffered a dislocation are inherently hypermobile, and if you take a hypermobile shoulder and overly stretch it too early, you can actually do harm to the patient. So it's very important that we use an evidence-based evaluation of the shoulder to determine what the mobility of the shoulder is, so that we can begin doing the appropriate amount of range of motion. But there, the next part was, I think, most important and applicable to TheraBand is we talked a lot about stabilization and how important strengthening the rotator cuff and the scapular muscles are. And so we've been able to share actually some of the research we did in track, some of our studies on scapular stabilization and rotator cuff strengthening using the flex bar, using the CLX, some of those types of appliances or devices or whatever in our rehabilitation. So the main focus was really that balance between regaining safe, appropriate range of motion, but then especially supporting the repair, the reconstruction with really good, strong rotator cuff and scapular musculature.
Awesome. And still in terms of the shoulder, you talked about enhancing scapular, thoracic, posture, strength, everything like that. What are some of the techniques you found to be key in that initiative?
Well, again, TheraBand kind of was a part of the presentation, oddly enough. We do a lot of stuff with elastic resistance. So some of my favorite exercises are the external rotation with retraction exercise using an elastic piece of elastic band, really increasing the activation of the lower trapezius over the upper trapezius. So many of the typical exercises that we do in rehab or patients do on their own, working out at the gym, they really overly activate the upper trapezius. And so sometimes that's kind of unwanted because people's upper traps are usually pretty strong. So what we really need to do is find out techniques that really work the lower trap. And so talked about some of the research studies, Dr. Ann Koels from Belgium and our own Lars Anderson from Copenhagen, some of their work about using low resistance, high repetition exercises down below shoulder level so they don't impinge or don't stress the shoulder, but yet activate the scapular muscles.
Okay. So what is your take on elastic resistance versus traditional weights? Do you have a preference, or is there a reason that you're using the elastic resistance with your tennis players?
We actually use both, but one of the things, particularly in tennis, why the elastic resistance has been so helpful is our guys go from Dubai to Indian Wells, to Japan, to, they fly all over the world. They have no idea what kind of gyms are going to be waiting for them, what kind of facilities are going to be at the hotel or at the tournament venue or off-site training areas. And so one of the inherent advantages of elastic resistance, of course, is they can put a CLX band or a piece of traditional tubing, they can put that in their racket bag and they can have that with them no matter where they are. And no matter what time of day it is, no matter where they are, they can link up the thing, do their exercises. It gives them very consistent, appropriate resistance that can be changed or modified just by elongating it. So it's very helpful. And we kind of balance both. We use the soft weight, of course, with a lot of the plyometric type exercises. We use the flex bar and whatnot to get oscillation, kind of to augment some of it, but really a very, very good base, and we've written about it and certainly done some research on it as well. The real good base is just some standard elastic resistance exercises that the players can do anywhere, and the same goes for our patients. As far as a home exercise program, if I got a limited number of times that I can see you as my patient, I've got to figure out a way for you to be able to do good quality exercises at home. And to give somebody a piece of tubing or band just allows them to be able to do some resistive exercise in a safe way at home to augment what we're doing in physical therapy.
Right. So, your players are all over the world and you're all over the world with them. What are, when you're traveling with these players, assessing them, helping them out, what are some of the things that you're looking for in terms of their assessments and with these players?
Well, some of the big ones, Rebecca, are external rotation weakness in the shoulder. That's a particular area that we really focus on, and we find that a large number of our players have less than optimal external rotation. Now, we test them when we train and do the testing on them. We're testing them at tournaments, so they may have just gotten done with a 2-hour tennis match, and 20 minutes later they're in there getting tested by us. So some of the weakness we know may just be the fact that we're seeing them when they're fatigued, but nonetheless, oftentimes we're seeing players also on off days and everything else, and they still have external rotation weakness. And so we think just with the repetitive demands of playing high-level tennis, whether it's in an elite junior who's 14, 15, 16, or a professional player, that this external rotation weakness in the shoulder is really, really important. The other thing we look very closely at is hip and core stabilization, and we use the balance pads, the stability platforms, arms, we do a one-leg stability test, and we find a lot of them have that Trendelenburg sign where their pelvis kind of shifts and drops. And to augment that, we do a lot of glute med and core stabilization training with bands and the stability trainers and those types of things to try to make sure that we're focusing on those key kind of trouble areas in a tennis player.
Sure. Well, thank you again so much for sitting down with us and talking about your work. And make sure you subscribe to the Performance Health Academy for more on Todd and his research and all of his shoulder exercises.